Well,
Not
yes. Hello, anybody that's watching on Facebook. I guess it always takes a time for people to arrive. So here's me and here's Rick, more importantly, from Ash. Hopefully any minute now people will start to stream in. But while we do that, we're just going to play video. Do you want to say, Rick, why you chose Burn Baby Burn? Or maybe it wasn't you that chose it, I don't know.
It was me that chose it. I don't know. So I thought it'd be a pretty good intro. We'll start the interview with the song that finishes our live set.
Good choice. Right, so here we go. During this, we can share the stream. Of course, now the video's vanished behind Facebook. So I'll try again. Right, any minute now.
Here we go.
Well, that was a good start to this evening. Welcome people who are joining. It's great to see there's lots of people joining the chat, the call, whatever we call it. Here's Rick from Ash.
Hi, everyone.
And if people don't know who I am, I'm Richard from Repeat Fanzine. We've been going quite a long time now, since almost the same length as Ash, actually. I will, just to justify who I am, I'm just going to show you some of these things. I have to turn my virtual background off. This is some of the copies of the fanzine we've done over the years. And interestingly, all of these issues, well, interestingly to me anyway, have had Ash in them. So this had a load of bands in it, including The Trail of the Dead, Knife in the Water, Broken Family Band, Exploit 101. This one's got Miss Black America, Kirsty McCall, the Ramones, the Levelers in it. But all of these have got Ash in there. This is the first one that Ash were in 1996, would you believe? Manic's on the front, of course. 60 Foot Dolls, Marion Manson. Marion and Manson, Three Colors Red. This one's got Garbage in it, who I believe are still going. Razor Lights, Wendy James, loads more in this one. I won't bore you, we're going through all the list of who's on there. But what all these ones have in common is that they all had Ash in them. And what I was going to start by asking Rick is what do you think means that Ash have kept going after all these years, and a lot of the bands in this fanzine are no longer, sadly, going in music?
Good question. I guess if we knew the answer to that, we probably would have written a book about it by now. But yeah, I don't know. We still love what we do. We're still like, we started out as friends first and foremost, you know, and yeah, we're just like taking the journey as far as we want. I remember early days, our manager sort of saying it's like we can sign a deal for, like, you know, as much money as we possibly can, but I think if you want to have a career at this, let's sign a smaller deal. And we went with a smaller deal, and that's kind of always been our thing, to, you know, make this more than just, you know, a couple of albums and then disappear. You know, it's been you know, our kind of like dream to make it our life, really, and so far so good.
So I was going to ask you that. Is it your career at the moment? Are you furloughed at the moment? And then if so, is it a bit strange that the thing that you did as a kid, as 14, picking up a guitar or a drumstick, becomes a career, a lifetime career?
Yeah, I mean, I guess this summer is going to be the first summer that we haven't done like any festivals, probably since 1994, I reckon. Although we do have a few gigs coming up actually, which sort of come out of the blue a few weeks ago. But yeah, it's kind of, you know, we had the 25th anniversary Teenage Wildlife out, you know, and we were touring that in Europe just as the whole coronavirus thing kicked off, and we had to cancel the UK tour just like 2 days before it started. So yeah, it was it's kind of tough and it's been weird, but you know, it's one of those things. It's just it's out of our hands. You can probably hear I'm sitting in a very creaky drum stool, I've just realized.
I'm sitting in this tricky chair, yes.
But yeah, it's you know, we want everyone to be safe when they come back. So that's the most important thing, when we can work off our frustrations when we get back in front of a live audience.
Indeed, it's important to be safe, as you say. I'm not sure the government always gets the hang of what it means to be safe, speaking as a teacher. I don't want to spend all the time talking about the past, but I did want to ask you some questions about the beginnings of Ash, if that's all right.
Sure, yeah.
You've just released the album Teenage Wildlife, but a few years before that, there was a DVD or a film called Teenage Wildlife that was free with another CD that you put out. I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. It was made by Stephen Wells, who's one of my music journalism heroes, or hero in general, because of his anti-racism and his stance on music and the way he wrote about it. It made the video made it look like the life when you first signed was almost nightmarish, even though it was brilliant at the same time. Was that true? How do you look back on that period? It looks like you were constantly working 24 hours a day, lack of control of your life. How was it, if you remember it even?
Yeah, it was sort of pretty intense. And I think that's the reason why we didn't put it out at the time as well, because we were sort of, you know, we toured 1977. You know, we kind of struggled to adjust to everything that happened. And that's pretty well documented in the film. But I think by the time we'd sort of finished it and done it, we felt, you know, it's a bit too much of a downer, especially we wanted to do a new record. And yeah, I think it was something that needed a bit of sort of distance before we put it out there, really. So yeah, I mean, it was a tough time, but you know, we kind of took maybe a couple of years after to sort of find our feet and sort of get used to it. But yeah, I think it's one of those things that being thrown into the deep end. If you have a number one record, doesn't matter what age you are, or whatever, it's gonna mess with your heads and your expectations of what it means versus the reality of what it means was the thing that sort of kind of threw us. And but we got through it, so that's the important thing.
Did you feel that you were forced to grow up from being a fanzine band to being a major label, major newspaper band too quickly? Because I know some people felt a bit protective of you as a fanzine band, and then suddenly you were on the front of Enemy and Melody Maker and all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, I guess when we started out, I mean, we started out before the whole big Britpop thing had even been mentioned in the media. You know, when we came from this sort of more like American-inspired influence, these Stooges and stuff were kind of early influences. So yeah, it was when everything sort of kicked off. It was kind of weird to be lumped in with all these very nostalgic bands, and I guess we were more influenced by our recent past than looking back, you know, to this sort of like heyday of. And I guess you could probably say the same about the Manics. Actually, they're one of the few bands around that time that sort of had that same, you know, they had a lot of stuff going on beforehand, but then they sort of like somehow got co-opted into the mainstream. So yeah, it was a weird time. Yeah. I guess at the time we didn't really think much of it. You know, it was just like. It didn't seem a big deal, but kind of looking back on it, I think a lot of the problems we had around 1977 were the perception of the band, and people not really understanding where we'd come from because we've been lumped in with this whole Britpop thing. So yeah, kind of looking back on it, yeah, that probably was a bit of a problem.
What do you think you're better at now than you were in 1994? Drumming.
Yeah, definitely drumming. Yeah, I think more than most bands, we probably kind of learned learned how to do what we were doing, kind of in the public eye as well, which is like kind of makes for a really quite bizarre way of doing things. But yeah, definitely drumming. Yeah.
As we're talking about 1977, there's a question come in. People, if you've got questions, feel free to put them down and I'll try to ask them if I think they're any good. Here's a question from Paul Edmondson. I might ask a follow-up as well. He says, can you ask Rick if he can explain the guacamole incident at the end of the 1977 album?
Well, I think that is a quote from a Ween song, I believe. But yeah, that was all part of he's talking about Sick Party, which ended up at the end of 1977. That was like that was originally going to be part of a greater track, which was called the Scream, which was just like voices starting humming, building up to like about 10,000 voices screaming as a secret track. But this one thing sort of was just so ridiculously funny. We ended up sticking it on at the end of the record. I think we listened to it like every single day in the studio for about 6 weeks.
You're pleased with it then?
Yeah, it's quite a weird thing to put on a record as a secret track, but we've got a few good stories. There's people who were unaware of it at the time, would fall asleep with the CD on and then wake up thinking they're being like broken into or something like that. So yeah.
Yes. As we're answering Paul's question, I know his son Luca, who I've taught guitar in the past, is a guitarist, but it's sometimes, which I'm always asking questions about what's the way to inspire young guitarists. But what young guitarists are always short of is young drummers to play along with. How can we inspire more young drummers, do you think?
Good question. I mean, I guess I don't know, but I would imagine there's probably more young drummers kicking around now than there was when we started. I mean, my whole thing was like, I started off playing guitar first when I was like probably about 11 years old, got a guitar, but a couple of years later it was like didn't know any drummers, and it was just like kind of like listened to music one day. I was like kind of like just focused in the drums somehow, and then was just like started tapping along on my bed or whatever, and then I was just like, I want a drum kit. And I guess, for me, that was the way to get a band started, was, because no one knew any drummers. But I guess these days, there's a lot more sort of electronic kits, and there's a lot more options that people can probably drum in more confined spaces than they used to be able to these days. So
yes, it's with electronic drum kits, isn't it? You don't have to make such a noise.
Yeah.
I was telling you before we started that I work with children with behaviour issues, and they love the guitar. That really focuses them. But there's also another teacher there who brings in his electric drum kit, and that really, really works as well. It's brilliant to see how music can focus people and make them feel good about themselves, don't you think?
Yeah. I think drums is one of those things where you can get a sound out of it no matter, on your first go on it. Sometimes guitars, getting the coordination between hands and playing notes, but it's like any kid who comes around my house is like, do you want to go in the drum kit? And they're just like straight in there, and they can sit there for like 20 minutes just hitting stuff and just delight and making noise. So yeah.
Yes, I've got a drum kit in my mini studio, and kids love to just come and whack that a bit. Makes them feel better.
Yeah.
Here's a question from Joe Hussey. How is Uncle Pat these days?
Uncle Pat was a real person, believe it. It was I think it was one of Mark's mates whose uncle was Uncle Pat, and he was just like sort of this guy who he kind of just sort of sofa surfed. He didn't have his own place. He just kind of sofa surfed around the town, and everyone knew him. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully he's still doing well.
Yes, yeah. Here's a question back from me. How does the quintessential teen band, as you were described, how does the quintessential teen band grow up? Did you have lots of problems plotting that like some so-called boy bands do? Did it just happen the way it happened?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just sort of kind of happened overnight. I don't know. I don't remember. I don't remember it happening. Yeah. Or either that, or it happened quite late when my kids were born.
Yes. Yeah.
That's one thing that definitely makes you grow up. But yeah.
I was going to say, how do you dovetail being a parent with being a rock god?
Well, yeah, there's been it is a little bit Jekyll and Hyde at times, but it's been my eldest daughter's just turned 9 years old, so
yeah,
I guess there's been moments of regression.
Does she play, or do your kids play?
Yeah. My daughter, she got a guitar for Christmas, which she sort of had. I'm kind of weird because I think when I was a kid, my mum was like really forced me to like playing piano for a bit, and I hated it. I think a couple of months of it, and I gave up. I kind of really resented it. So I'm very conscious of like being that kind of like pushy with
Yeah.
instruments, but they're surrounded by it in the house. You know, I've got
Yes, I can see. Yes.
drum kit over there, some guitars here. There's like synthesizers like surrounding my computer here, and there's like piano upstairs. So yeah, I think when she does, I think just because she is surrounded by it 24/7, she kind of like has this sort of like just natural knack for it when she chooses to do it. So yeah, I think, you know, as much as anything, it's about exposure, really, you know.
Yes, having music around you, isn't it, and all the time, and talk about it and everything. Have any of them? Have either of your kids been to see you play live?
Oh yeah. They've been to like festivals.
Do they enjoy it?
All over. Yeah. They love it. I think the last time there was a festival quite close to where I live, and I think my eldest ended up sitting in the barrier in front of Tim, and then I suddenly realized that she was like, there was like screens on the other side of the stage, and every time the camera sort of panned across like that, she was like leaping up in the air to try and get on the screen. So yeah.
As we're talking about gigs like that, here's a question from Dee, who I know you know from way back.
Hi Dee.
Who lives not so far from you these days. Are you looking forward to the drive-in gigs? Can you say a bit about how they're going to work?
I can say a bit about them. I haven't had much information so far, but I've seen, I think there's a video kicking around on YouTube, which is like it's an animation of how it's supposed to work. It's just got like, you know, little like stick people, whatever. And they've got the stage. So there's going to be the cars will come in. There's going to be like an area mapped out for the cars. And from the look of the video, people can park their car, and then they're going to have a space beside their car where they can get out as well. So it's like you're not sitting in your car watching the gig, as far as I know. So yeah, because that would be a bit weird, just playing to a bunch of windscreens. Yeah. But you know, we're, you know, even if that was the case, I think doing a gig is better than not doing a gig at this stage. You know, and if we can do it in a safe way.
So will you have to be socially distanced from each other? Will there be 2 meter signs all over the stage?
I don't know how that's going to work, because obviously we're going to be traveling together. I don't know whether we're going to be traveling in a tour bus, whether we're going to be traveling in a like splitter van, or whether we're going to be driving in separate vehicles. So I don't know. Maybe we'll be forming our bubble, but you know,
well, it's still to be worked out. Well, sort of exciting anyway, isn't
that's
it?
for someone else to work out. I'll worry about it when someone tells me.
Yeah, well, that's all exciting anyway, isn't it? It's nice to get live music up and running again, because
yeah, definitely
missed it. What was it? So moving on a little bit from 1977, what's it like since then, performing with some of your heroes, people that you looked up to since you were a kid, heroes and heroines?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest hero for me that we've played with has been Dave Grohl. And yeah, it's like, you know, one of the few people I still get starstruck like any time I see him. You know, it's like probably, you know, the biggest living influence on my drumming, and you know, in one of the bands that was the main inspiration for us getting together. So yeah, it's always amazing. And I think probably the best story was we recorded the album Meltdown in LA with Nick Raskulinecz, who produced the previous Foo Fighters record, and they just finished touring that record. Dave Grohl was home, and he was obviously bored, so he was in the studio like probably about 3 or 4 times during the process. But I think when we were mixing, I was just like, I was hanging out just chilling out for an hour or whatever, and then Mark come upstairs and was like, "Oh yeah, you just missed Dave Grohl. He's just been air drumming too." You didn't come and get me. So yeah, that's a moment missed. Never get that one back.
There's lots of questions coming in. Thanks to people who are sending questions in. Keep sending them. I will try to address them. I'm trying to lose them on the screen. Great that so many people are watching and sending in comments and questions. I'll go through them in a bit. As I said, what can you tell us about the choice of cover versions that you've done in the past? Have you got a favourite? What's the next one you're doing? What makes you choose certain songs to cover?
Yeah, I think the one we put on the on Teenage Wildlife, Coming Round Again, is like a pretty epic one with Carly Simon's song, which is one that we covered like really, really early. But I think we did like a BBC Radio Ulster session back in 1993, and it was just sort of, it wasn't as good as it could have been. So that was when we got our own studio. That was one of the things Tim really wanted to. He was like, I think we could now like really do this song justice. We kind of went to town on it. It was just sort of had this epic outro. There's about like 9 different guitar solos on it and stuff like that. But yeah, that's definitely one that's one of my favorites for sure. But yeah, I don't know. There's one that we haven't done yet, which I'd love to do, which is Another Girl, Another Planet by The Only One.
2.5, yes. Yeah.
Which I think would suit us really well.
You're playing the guitar part for that, the guitar solo.
I'd give it a shot. I think Nick could probably do it better, but yeah.
Good. That'd be a great choice. Yeah. What I might do now, if it's all right, I've got a few photos from the Repeat digital scrapbook to show you, see if they bring back any memories.
Oh yeah.
That's all right. And then I've got the list of gigs that we've interviewed you at. So some of them are going to be a bit tiny on people's screens, but I'll try to make them big. And I don't always get it right, but we'll see. Here's the first one.
Let's see.
This is one that Adam Chalmers took, and it is from 2010. Can you see that? Is that on the screen all right?
Yeah, I think I used this one on Twitter.
I think you used it on the video, didn't I?
And yeah. I did sort of scroll past it, and I was just like, Johnny Marr looks really angry. And then it was like, and I'd actually scroll past it and was like, oh, hold on. Yeah, that is Tim.
The background.
I think it was actually the drum. I was like, that looks like my old drum kit. I was like, oh, hold on. Yeah, it's us. Bizarre, yeah. But yeah, I guess that must be around the A to Z time, I think.
2010, that was, yeah.
2010 would be, yeah.
What's next? Oh, I just put that in because it was in the video. So
yeah.
That's very small. I wonder if I can get that bigger. That was 2006. That's Steve Bateman, who's one of our long-standing writers and photographers.
Yeah.
It's hard to get photos of drummers because you hide at the back of the stage generally.
Yeah.
I think you did a good job.
Yeah, that's funny. I think I'll probably date these photos by the drum kit. That's
another of Steve's. That's 2 years later. Is that the same drum kit?
Same drum kit, yeah.
Yeah.
The big boot sparkle. My John Bonham tribute kit.
Here we go to the Repeat interviews.
Right.
That's not much fun for people who can't. 2001 in Norwich.
Yeah. Tim and Mark do that one then?
For some reason you weren't there, yes.
Right.
You were probably somewhere far more interesting, I imagine.
I imagine I was probably somewhere else doing an interview.
You probably were. Ipswich Corn Exchange. My friend Sarah did that one. I think she's watching. Sarah did that in Ipswich Corn Exchange 2001.
Yeah, it's been a while since we played the Corn Exchange.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
And then this, even though it doesn't look very interesting, is most interesting to me because it's the first one we ever did, which somebody called Rowan did, who was at school. He's probably younger than you even then. And he's gone on to work for Radio 1 and Six Music and all sorts of stuff since starting in the fanzine. And I really enjoyed that tour because Biss were supporting and 60 Foot Dolls were supporting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just heard 60 Foot Dolls for the first time in quite a while on Six Music the other day. They popped up, and then suddenly I got a friend request from Richard Parfitt, the singer, the same day. It was just like, wow.
If people don't know 60 Foot Dolls, they should definitely listen. I don't know if they're on Spotify, but
yeah, I think they should be. I think I've found them on there. So
also, I remember somebody threw their shoe when Biss were playing, and it hit the drum machine and broke it.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
And you were running late because you'd been at TFI Friday beforehand.
Wow.
According to the introduction. Any more? Oh, that's another Steve Bateman shot. He's done a good job there.
Yeah.
All these are on the Repeat fanzine website. People who want to look at pictures. That's Steve's portrait of you, which he did a good job again.
Yeah.
Again, I think that's 2008. That might. Oh, that was Norwich again.
Yeah.
That's the interview there. I found this on your Twitter. What do you know about this? I was just going to ask you what you know about
I was given this in an interview at the end of last year by this guy called Mild Mannered Army, I think is his website. And yeah, so apparently someone did these Britpop top trumps cards. But God, look at that. It's terrifying.
Do you think there's going to be cards actually existing? Well,
Yeah, I've actually got this card stuck to my fridge.
Nice.
Since that interview, but there's a whole set of, I think there was 2 different sets done. I think you can still buy them online.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, the first set was pretty good. This guy Paul told me about it. It was like the art was really well. He said the second set was particularly the art wasn't the best, as you can see. I think I look younger now than I do in that.
You look a bit grumpy there, or a bit glum anyway. Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe you just read your scores down there. You're quite good there. We're not Britpop 16.
16, yeah. You could probably add about 100 to that.
Yes. I think that might be there's another one there. That's a Getty. Oh, I stole that from Getty. I had to cover that up. Yes. You look like you're concentrating there.
I look pretty vacant, to be honest.
Are you okay?
Quite a while. This must be. It's definitely pre-meltdown, that's for sure.
Is it?
I don't recognize that. Oh no, I think this will be 2002 in America, I reckon.
Right.
Drum kit again. I placed it.
Yes. Yeah. That's the way to date it, is it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that shows you on the last one. Excellent. Well, I'm glad you remember some of those things. So I've also got a list of dates that we went to, but I don't expect you to remember all these. But I suppose if anybody's watching that went to any of these, you could send us a little message. After I've read these out, I'm going to go through some of the questions that have come in, if that's okay. So the times that Repeat has covered Ash, or no, interviewed, not just covered, interviewed Cambridge 1996 with Biss and 60-foot dolls, as we said, Leeds 98, UEA 01, Swindon 02, Bristol and 07, and also interviewed Charlotte in 2007, which sort of counts. Astoria 08, Bristol 04. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I made that 8. So that is the most, if anybody's interested, the most often interviewed band by Repeat fanzine is in Ash.
Come on, Mannix. Need to step your game up.
Yeah. So right, I'm going to go through these questions. 2 people at least have asked about the A to Z singles. One of them asking if they achieved what you wanted them to do, what the thinking was behind them, and somebody else, Jimmy, saying, will you think of re-releasing them because he thinks they're so good they deserve a bit of a wider audience. So Richard Bull asks what you set out to achieve with them and if you did it, and Jimmy says, what did it teach you as a band? And do you think some of these amazing songs might have got hidden by the sheer weight of output that year? Yeah,
good questions. Yeah, I mean, in terms of what we wanted to achieve, I think we were hoping that we could, with our fan base, we could get them into the top 40. And unfortunately, they just fell short. I think most of it getting into the top 40. But yeah, I mean, I guess this was back in. I mean, the whole idea of it came from. I think it was around the week that Twilight of the Innocents was released, and it was the first time we'd sort of like had an album sort of like lose support just as it was coming out. Budgets were being cut and stuff like that. The music industry was in total like free fall, and it really hadn't addressed us anyway. It didn't seem to be even wanting to address like how to proceed with the revolution in music that the internet had created. So I think for us, we wanted to like, well, it's like, record company they just want to put out another album, or like we can't go through that again, and sort of like have our dream sort of like shattered before we even got it out there. So I think we wanted to kind of reflect how people were consuming music and just come up with a new model. And I don't know, I guess we were probably a bit ahead of the curve, because it took until Spotify happened for the subscription model to kind of catch on, really. So yeah, it was a bit of a weird one, but yeah, I mean, I think in terms of as I think someone was asking there about this sort of like songs being lost in the sheer weight of numbers, I think that's right. And I think I think it's just the whole industry was still geared around the album launch and that sort of like week of release thing. So this whole campaign that was spread out over a year was probably got diluted, and you know, yeah. So I think the industry just wasn't ready for it. I think the fan base was ready for it. Certainly after the first few weeks, I think it became. I know there was a few fans who were like a little bit sort of dubious and going like, "Oh, they're not going to do another album again. What's going on?" But I think by the end of it, you know, everyone kind of got it, and we're just like, "Oh man, what are we going to do when we don't have a new song from Ash in our inbox every 2 weeks?" So yeah, it was definitely a good kind of creative thing. I think we kind of wanted to harness, like, I guess, the pre-1977 singles that whole year when we were like releasing like Kung Fu and Girl from Mars and Angel Interceptor, like right through to Goldfinger before the album came out. That was like, felt like a real fun creative time because we could kind of play with people's expectations a little bit with each single release, and we kind of wanted to get into that mode with it. And I think in the end, it probably wasn't quite as spontaneous as it could have been, mainly because we did it in vinyl as well, and there was like lead times for the vinyl getting pressed up. So
yeah,
that put a little bit of a spanner in the works. But it was definitely good. We sort of like, you know, had a lot of tracks, as we were kind of like, well, we said we're going to release 20 and 26 in 1 year. It's A to Z. We can't fall on our face with this. So we did like a lot of tracks beforehand, but we still left room for creativity, and we're still like choosing which track was coming next up to the last minute. So yeah, it was a fun time. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, re-release would be good at some point. But yeah.
Joanna asked a good question here. How was it literally being chased around Europe earlier this year by the pandemic?
That was a weird time. That was a really weird time. I think I was actually tour managing during that, which is the first time I've tour managed as well.
You picked an easy one.
Yeah. So, you know, I think at the beginning it was sort of like, well, the Italian show got cancelled, and that was like, oh yeah, you know, that sucks, but you know, it's good to be safe. So we had a day off in Munich, which day off in Munich's always fun. So we were fine with that. And then I think we got to Switzerland. I think it was the day before we got there, and the day before the show for a day off, and they'd cancelled all concerts over, I think, 1,000 capacity. So we were okay, but I think the promoter and stuff they were just like, they were having a nightmare trying to cancel everything that was coming up. But the gig was fine, and then we were like, right, we're heading sort of like into Germany, up through Poland and stuff. So we're kind of heading away from everything. So that's going to be okay. But unfortunately, it sort of caught up with us in Norway. I think it was a gig in Bergen, which we played this place like quite a lot in the early days. We're really looking forward to it again. We get in this place called the Hulen, which is this like air raid shelter built in like caves. Really cool, but it's really tiny. And we were set up and ready. And then the promoter was like, the government have just said everyone needs 1 meter space in here, and we're the only gig in town tonight, so they will turn up. And if they turn up and no one has the space, I'm going to get arrested. So he was like, do you want to cancel the gig, or do you want to move to a bigger venue? This is like 5 o'clock in the evening. So like, do you want to cancel the gig, or do you want to move to the bigger venue? It's like, let's go to the bigger venue. And just like packed, it was after sound check as well. So packed everything back into the bus and then down to the next venue and set up. And it was just like, kind of felt like heroes for doing the gig at that point. And then the next day was the final gig, which was the day that they'd announced it as a worldwide pandemic. So that was, we kind of knew, right, we just got to get home now. So yeah, it was tough, but yeah, we made it.
As we're talking about gigs and venues and so on, it'd be a good time to point out that this is obviously a free event, but at the top of the page, there is a link to the Music Venues Trust Crisis Appeal, because small venues particularly are really going to struggle surviving the crisis. There has been some money given out by government this week, and that was thanks to campaigns from people like Music Venues Trust. And I think there's been some money given out in Scotland as well to small venues. But I still think a lot of the small venues, their survival is in the balance. And if you want to go and see bands, big bands start as little bands, and small venues need to survive. So if you can afford to donate, please do. If you can't afford, maybe you could share the link. Rick chose that as a cause to put on the.
Yeah, and I think it's I've seen a few things saying it's like up to 90% of venues are like facing closure, and we still, it's like, it's great that we're finally seeing the arts getting a bit of support from the government, but we still don't know when it's going to be safe to go back. So if you can do anything, that's great. If not, that's fine. But yeah,
agreed. Yes. A couple of people said they went to the Cambridge gig, just as a by the by. Paul and Dee went. Dee was doing the t-shirts for the 60-foot dolls and Biss at that gig, I think she says. Paul was at the gig. Paul Edmondson, he's got a question from his son, so he gets a second question. His son is, I think he's 11, he's just started a band. How do you keep your band together for so long? Because he wants to keep his band together. I think he may have already had issues, possibly.
It's a tough one. I don't know. We just seem to have there just seems to be the right chemistry there. It's not every band can do it, but yeah, just I don't think you can plan to keep a band together. It just kind of has to be right. If you get on as people, and you can, you always have differences of opinion, but I think the thing with us is that we know that anytime there's a difference of opinion, we know that everyone's got the best interests of the band behind what they're saying. So it's not about ego, basically. And I think if you got someone who's like concerned only about themselves, that's when the problems arise. The band's bigger than every member.
On a similar issue, Fraser says, will you ever play with Charlotte again? And also see you in Holmfirth?
Yeah, see you in Holmfirth, yeah. Hopefully. Yeah, I mean, we were actually, I think, on our UK tour back in March, which got cancelled. We'd planned to get Charlotte up for a few songs at that point. So, it's like, yeah, we always enjoy the opportunity. I think we did the last time we did, I think, Shepherd's Bush. She got up and did the encore. It just always puts a big smile on my face when she's back on stage. Yes. It's always great. So yeah, that door will never be permanently shut, as far as we're concerned.
A couple of questions about favourite songs. I'll put them both together. What's your favourite song to play live, and what is your favourite song that you've written? Michael says it should be Stormy Water should have been on Nuclear Sounds. Thank
you, Michael. Can't argue with you there. Yeah, probably my finest moment. Favorite song to play live? I don't know. It can change quite a lot. I mean, it always, with a new album, getting new songs in the set, there's always a favorite about that. I think Confessions in the Pool was a fun one. It just seemed to be one that always, even if people didn't know it, it definitely got them dancing by the end. So yeah, that's cool. But of all time, I don't know. I've always got a soft spot for Goldfinger. Right.
Yes. Well, if it's all right, can we have you got another 10 minutes? We keep going for 10 minutes or so.
Sure, yeah.
So I'm going to ask a few questions, and then after that, I'll go for any more that have come in.
Yeah.
And then we'll stop. So thanks to all the people who've sent in comments. I tried not to miss any out. As you were talking about your own songwriting, what can you tell us about the Donkey Sanctuary, which is something else you're involved with?
Yeah, Donkey Sanctuary. That was like me and Ash's sound engineer Haggis, who lives quite close by, and a friend of mine who I met through a maternity group when our kids were being born, who turned out to be in a local band in Scotland called the Bucky Rage. We just sort of decided, I don't know how it came about. It was just like, let's just get together. And I can't even remember who came up with the concept. It's basically, we get in with whatever instrument we want, and we get some sounds together, and then we press record and see what comes out. So it's very meandering, jam-based. And I almost wrote a manifesto for it. But it's very much anti-music. I think
on SoundCloud, isn't it? If people want to listen.
Yeah, it's on SoundCloud. If yeah. Be warned, you need a strong stomach for it. I think there's one song that's kind of, you could describe as a song. The rest of it, I'm not sure what you'd describe it as. But I think our dream is to like make loads of money with it, doing corporate team building exercises where we get a load of people from, I don't know, like from some like PricewaterhouseCoopers or something like that, lock them in a room and then just musically terrorize them for about 2 hours.
It is different, I must say that. I have a little listen. Dave Volunteer is still listening, watching. He will enjoy it, I think, as a guest who was watching earlier.
Okay.
If you go to SoundCloud and put the Donkey Sanctuary in, does it come up?
It's just Donkey Sanctuary, yeah.
Okay, Donkey Sanctuary. When I was Googling it before, lots of other things, pictures of donkeys came up, I must say.
Yeah, we've had a few people like asking us what they can do with their sick donkey, which made it feel quite bad. But we pointed in the right direction. No donkeys have been hurt during the making of our music.
We should have one guesting on vocals.
Yeah, possibly.
You said you might have done a manifesto for that. I see that from your Twitter you're quite opinionated about the way the world is at the moment. Is there anything you want to say about that?
Where to start? Where do you start with the way the world is at the minute? Yeah, we're in. I don't even know what we're run by, but yeah, it's not a democracy. We're just it's a bunch of clowns. It's a bunch of psychopaths who are in charge. If I was thinking about this earlier, earlier today, I was going like, in the Middle Ages, people probably got a better deal accidentally because some insane monarch had a conscience, but we seem to be run by people with like zero conscience at the minute, and it's. I don't know where it ends or how we deal with it, but yeah, it's just like, you know, I think things that when we started the band, there was I've been thinking about this a lot recently. Actually, there was the criminal justice bill. I'm sure you remember that.
Yeah.
And you know, there was definitely a sense that music could change that, and it turned out it failed, but you know, it felt like there was a movement there that could try and change things, and it just that idea seems to have disappeared with, you know, I think anything that's not right wing is just, you know, is just defunded and left to wither and die.
That's true, but
that's a cheery thought for a Friday evening.
But you can be cheered up by seeing the fact that a band like Idols, who are angry, political, quite articulate, are doing so well for themselves. Makes me feel better about the world when I listen to an Idols song. Yeah, I
agree with that.
I'm quite active in a group called Love Music Hate Racism. When I told other people I was talking to you, they said that they thought you played a gig for Love Music Hate Racism, but we couldn't find that on the internet anywhere. Do you remember if you ever did that? Maybe possibly in Manchester? Can't remember. I can't
remember. I'm sure we did.
Yes, because thinking about successful music.
If you know, I may not remember, but if we'd been asked to do it, then we would have definitely said yes, absolutely.
But before the criminal justice bill, I think 1994, there was an absolutely massive anti-racist carnival with the Manics and the Levellers and Credit to the Nation in Brixton. That was just as you were just beginning, I guess. Yeah. That did get rid of the Nazi councillor that was in the area. So
yeah, I think the point I'm trying to make is that I think a lot of these battles that we perceive to have been sort of won in the 90s. And I think, when we were sort of starting out, it was just like, it felt like it was a little bit of a utopia with, like the Tories being kicked out of power and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It almost feels like all those battles are going to have to be refought again, and that's the frustrating thing. We're not even progressing. We're trying to win back what should have been there permanently.
Exactly. Yes. When I was preparing questions for you, I thought, I've not talked to many drummers before. Who's the drummer you'd most like to meet? If you were in a similar situation to me and had to talk to a drummer, or wanted to talk to a drummer, who would be interesting?
Oh, man. Well, John Bonham obviously is a big influence as well. And just like kind of untouchable as a rock drummer. But, it's like, I was listening to some Max Roach last night when I was out for a run, which might surprise a few people. It's like a jazz drummer.
Right, yeah.
And yeah, he's I think what's the album? The album's called Freedom We Insist, I think. It's a very sort of political jazz album. That was, jazz was very much, well, it's almost a case that the civil rights movement in America grew out of jazz, actually. And, jazz at the time was the punk rock. So we've kind of been exploring that as well. So yeah, talk to some of those guys about, how they would see the world today, and
Yes,
how they would fight the fight would be interesting.
Yes, like you say, they might not think it's progressed that much.
Yeah,
you can see what's going on in America. What advice would you have for the 16-year-old you? And Dee sort of follows up on that and says, how would you advise young bands to get a foothold when the things are so strange at the moment with no live gigs and so on? It must be really difficult.
Yeah, well, I mean, advice to young bands at the moment. I don't know. I think I'm not sure if I have any advice for them. I mean, just do what you do. I mean, the business at the minute. Be careful with what you sign. Try and hold as much of your intellectual property rights as physically possible, because that's where all the money's made. It's like, and fight against Spotify as much as you can.
Good advice. Amandine's got a question. She says, do you ever get songs mixed up while playing live?
No, not mixed up. Oh, I do remember. I think it was in rehearsal. We had, it was a good few years back. We'd sort of written the set list and we were going through it. And then Tim suddenly started playing a song that wasn't on the set list. And I was just like sat there go, what's this song? And my motor just kicked in. I was actually playing the song.
Yeah.
While still going, oh, what's this one again? Oh, and it was Jack Names the Planet. So that's, yeah, that was kind of weird. That it's just like, oh, I need to be playing right now. It was just like, knew the song inside out, just couldn't remember what it was. I had a few moments like that. I think I remember hearing, like, I think it was the song Princess Six, which is probably a lesser known track on Twilight of the Innocents. Mm-hmm. Hearing that written on, I think it came on the shuffle. My wife had put it on in the car, and I was just like, "Oh, who's this? This is kind of cool." And then just like, hold on.
Well, that's really nice to hear that you thought it was cool.
Yeah, good job. I liked it.
Yeah. Right, I've got a bit of a longer question here from Steve Bateman, who has done a lot of that brilliant photography you saw. I'll read the whole question and you can think about it. When Islands was released, Tim mentioned that Ash had also been working on songs for another album that sounded very different to anything the band had ever released. Will the new Ash album still be going in this direction? And what do you think is the most atypical song you've recorded to date? There's two parts to that.
Yeah, well, funny, I was talking to Tim last night actually, and he sort of the album is getting close to being finished. Even though, I mean, I think I like all the drums were recorded pre Island's release.
Yeah, really.
So it's quite weird. If like I've been sitting in this, but I think Tim's been he's been using his lockdown time to be productive and it's like finished lyrics, and he's just sort of he's actually been stuck in Northern Ireland for the whole time. He's not been back home since
Oh, really? Right. Yeah.
February. Yeah, so he ended up after the tour, like he couldn't get back to America.
Yeah.
And so he's been, yeah, I think he might get back next week, maybe. But anyway, yeah, so he's sort of finished lyrics, so we're kind of hoping any day now we'll get some finished versions.
Oh, excellent.
And over, but yeah, it is quite out there. In terms of what we do, it's very different from Islands for sure. It's very difficult to describe it, especially since I haven't got the finished vocal on it yet. But I'm really excited about it. I mean, I always like kind of surprising people. Might not be the best, sort of.
Is it atypical in a way that fits with any of your past atypical releases?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is reminiscent of Ash. I mean, it's like you can tell it's us playing it, so it's not like we've kind of become a dance band. Well, you know, there are a few dance moments on it.
Are you teasing people? That's
yeah, we should have to. I mean, I think it sort of depends on the track listing as well. I guess which songs make the record, but
yes, yeah.
I'll be pushing for the weirder ones. Don't worry about
that. Here's a nice message from Kate Collins. She says she'll be coming to see you at the rearranged gig in Bristol next year. Her best time was at an Ash gig when both she and her partner, it was the TJ's gig where they stayed until about 4 a.m. Then the thrust of this is, please could you wish Tom and Kate a happy 20 years together for next Wednesday?
Oh, wow. Congratulations. Happy 20th anniversary.
So that's Kate and Tom, yes.
Lovely, Kate and Tom.
Yes, and Joanna says you're such a tease about the next album. couple more questions, and do you want
me to play it for you now?
That would be so exciting, but I think you'd get in big trouble. the A to Z collection is getting a lot of love on here. Actually, people saying they've really enjoyed getting the releases in the post, and that the tracks there mustn't be forgotten. Couple more questions then from me, and then we'll wrap up. If you can keep going. How best can we support the grassroots industry? I've touched on that a little bit.
I think as soon as you're able, you know, obviously we've got the link here. If you're able to donate, that's great. But you know, if you can't, don't feel guilty about it. But yeah, just as soon as you can, get out to your local venues. You know, as soon as it's safe. You know.
I think even if you don't know the band, just go down and see it. Cause
yeah. You know, it's like,
and you'll find.
Chances are, you know, there might not be a band on. There could be a club night, but you know, it's like maybe instead of going to your local pub, go to your local venue, see bands you don't know, have a few drinks there. And, yeah.
Repeat has a little record label, and we promote young bands, and it's so difficult for them not having anywhere to play.
Yeah.
All the plans we had for releasing records, all the records were in the box behind me because we couldn't get them out because Record Store Day was cancelled and everything. It's just really, really difficult.
Yeah.
Have you got a favourite three-piece band, seeing as you're a three-piece band?
Favorite three-piece band? Well, I think the first thing that popped into my head there was the Jimi Hendrix Experience. I mean, they're just the king of the three-piece. I mean, just like three absolutely phenomenal musicians. You know, I think that's what any three-piece would probably aspire to.
Who has the best lockdown beard?
I think I'm the only one with a lockdown beard, but I had that before anyway. The lockdown haircut's sort of.
Yes.
Well, yeah, you know, I've done my own lockdown haircut, but then I've always cut my own hair as well.
So it's nothing different then.
Yeah.
You have certainly lived a life less ordinary, getting plucked from school to this lifestyle. What do you think your highlights are? And that's a big thing to think about.
I don't know. I mean, just to get to do what we do for this long, you know, it's like to have a dream in your teenage years and still to be living it when, you know, I'll be 45 tomorrow, so that's, you know,
happy birthday tomorrow. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, it's, you know,
yeah.
You can single out like gigs, like some of the Reading gigs have been amazing, but you know, even compared to just like one single gig, I mean that beats everything.
Yes. So how long to the next Ash release? Is it hard to say?
Hopefully next year, but then it's kind of weird because we'll be touring. You know, our tour is obviously rescheduled for next March, April. So it might be a bit weird touring this year's compilation when we've got a new album out. So yeah, we haven't quite figured it out, but we need to get it finished, and then we can sort of like kind of realistically start planning it. But yeah, definitely next year.
Hot news is Martin, who's watching, says his lockdown beard is the best.
Okay.
So there's no argument about that. And Kate says happy birthday to you for tomorrow. That's great. So we're going to finish with playing a video. I've got 2 questions that fit with the video. When I put this up on Twitter, we were doing this event, we got a message from Helen Love, who some people know, hopefully some people know, a fantastic pop punk keyboard, guitar, drum machine band that write incredibly infectious songs, and are near neighbours of mine here in Swansea. And they said to say thank you for wearing the T-shirt on Top of the Pops. Can you tell us anything about that? I was going to play that video to finish with.
Yeah, I'd actually completely forgotten that I'd worn.
Well, obviously she didn't.
yeah. Well, I was watching the video yesterday on my phone, and I couldn't even see the T-shirt on there. But I'll take Helen's word for it. But yeah. I mean, you're welcome for the T-shirt, and thank you for the music, Helen.
She's still
absolutely
creating music. Yeah. So if anybody wants something to listen to on Spotify, 60 Foot Dolls, Helen Love, Biss, loads of bands like that. Right, the final question. I'm afraid your band has answered it 8 times before, because I always ask it. It's not that difficult though. What's best, chips or cream buns?
Chips.
Chips. Well, that is the general answer.
Have we been consistent with that answer?
I think you have. I did do a bar chart at one point of all the bands, about 2 to 1, if not more. So there's a couple more birthday messages. Happy real birthday, Rick. I don't know what that means. That's from D.
Oh, I know what that means.
You do you? Has the Brighton gig in August been rescheduled? Some Elliot says.
I don't think yet, but with basically all the festivals this summer have just like rolled on to next year. So I would assume that we'd be rescheduling that for next summer, but obviously can't guarantee that at this point. Right,
I'd like to thank Rick for his time so much, because he was talking to us, and it's so nice replying to what fans say. It's a really nice connection between fans and the band. Big thanks to Ailey, is it your manager who fixed it up for us?
Yeah, I was Ailey sorted
so helpful with doing it, and Jay from Prescription PR for helping plug it. Thanks everyone who's been watching. If you can share the link for the Music Venues Trust, that would be great. And we're going to finish with you wearing a particular T-shirt, I believe.
Excellent.
From Top of the Pops. So any second now. Here we go. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care. Wash your hands. Don't believe what the government tells you. Here we go.
Nice one.
Ash, choose a life less ordinary.
In the slow haze of the afternoon, swaying hips lit like a gun, like a sound so beautiful. Starry world in the air on the tongue, the falling eyes beyond the stars beneath the sun. So take me in your arms again. So, what is it worth? I'll sell my soul. What is it worth? Only
title track from the...
Thanks everyone for watching. We'll put it on YouTube, the whole thing later.
Awesome.